Hello there, folks. Roger Gale is the Conservative Member of Parliament for North Thanet in Kent, thus very close to the epicentre of the asylum seeker boat crossings. North Thanet is home to the Manston Processing Centre, which we will hear more about in the following clip. I don't need to explain to most of you here about the strange place in which politics finds itself. The Tories are in such a mess and packed with disgraceful tyrants, I am genuinely beginning to miss some of the old boys who have long left office. People I have absolutely nothing in common with politically, but they had, at the very least, a shred of integrity about them. Roger Gale is one of their few remaining survivors. He is on the record as saying he is fighting for the very soul of the Conservative Party, desperately attempting to prevent it from becoming UKIP version 2.0. Unfortunately, Roger, it would appear the battle is already lost. I suppose it is mildly convenient Roger Gale is one of the Deputy Speakers of the House, meaning he does not participate in any votes because he seems genuinely irritated by the government's approach to dealing with this problem, especially so Home Secretary Suella Braverman, with whom it is fairly clear Gale is at the end of his tether. Gale is a proponent of more cooperation with Europe and beyond, and feels that is by far the most effective way of resolving the small boat arrivals, instead of the barrage of dog whistle politics coming from the Home Office. For the record, Roger Gale believed remaining in the European Union was by far the better of the two options, and it would not surprise me whatsoever if he soon goes the way of fellow Tory MP Tobias Ellwood in calling out Brexit as the mess it so clearly is. Roger Gale appeared on a special episode of Jeremy Kyle's Talk TV show, which was called Jeremy Kyle Investigates the Migrant Crisis. The entire thing was a mess, nothing but a barrage of ignorance and dog whistles coming from Isabel Oakeshott, former UKIP leader Henry Bolton, and of course Jeremy Kyle himself. Immigration lawyer Ivan Sampson and barrister Paula Roan Adrienne knocked back almost everything the troublesome trio had to say by quoting either the Refugee Convention, international law, or maritime law, the same laws Isabel Oakeshott seems utterly determined to break. Roger Gale wasted no time whatsoever, taking aim at Braverman, Bolton, and Oakeshott, delivering the much-needed truth Talk TV viewers need to hear, but whether they will take heed, well, that's another matter. Let's take a look.
Now, one man who knows more about this topic than most is Sir Roger Gale, MP for North Thanet, home of the Manston Asylum Processing Centre, which has been in the news so much of late. Sir Roger, welcome to the show. Do we lack the leadership, the will, the finance or the resolve in this country to do something constructive and get this problem sorted?
No, we don't lack the will, but it's only going to be solved long-term by international agreement. First of all, bilaterally with the French, and then on a pan-European basis. And by a pan-European basis, I don't just mean the European Union. I mean countries such as Turkey as well. And unless and until we understand that, we're not going to begin to solve the problem. It's all very well for Mr. Abbott to say, we did this, or for the supporters of Mr. Bolton's party to say, send them back. But we in this country abide by international law, and under international law, you can't just send them back. And indeed, Isabel Oakeshott knows that as well. So we have to start to get real about this and be grown up about it. And I happen to think, although I am not his greatest fan, that Rishi Sunak has taken a grown-up decision to talk to Mr. Macron and to reach the early stages of an agreement that is already bearing fruit. Now, that's only the first tentative step. We've got to go a lot further. But it is a step in the right direction rather than a step in the wrong dog whistle direction.
So, Roger, Manston, obviously, the facility, the processing facility in the press so much over the last few weeks, it's on your patch. Just for people watching, for some explanation, why did things spiral out of control? How bad was it?
For the first 9.5 months, from January of this year right through until mid-September, the Manston Processing Centre worked extremely well, was humane, efficient, people were well cared for, well looked after, documented, and moved on. You need to understand the purpose of Manston was to take the pressure off the port of Dover, and indeed on the quayside at Dover, where people were literally lying in the rain on the ground, move them to a facility where they could be processed, fingerprinted, have their biometrics taken, details taken, checked for possible terrorist activity or previous criminal records where that was possible, and then moved on to alternative accommodation. It was never intended to be a permanent residence for anybody at all. What actually happened, and there's a dispute about this, so I need to flag that up, but what actually happened, in my view, is that the incoming Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, took a policy decision not to sign off any additional accommodation. And within days, there was a backlog. Mrs. Braverman resigned briefly. Grant Shapps took over briefly as Home Secretary and began to reverse the process and unblock the system. Mrs. Braverman came back into office and the block came on again. The result of that was that Robert Jenrick and I, the Minister of State at the Home Office, and I found ourselves on a Sunday in the pouring rain, in the dark, at Manston, with 4,500 people in a facility that was designed to take 1,500. It should never have happened. It needn't have happened. And now that we've got the situation back on track, the system is once again working as it was supposed to and properly.
Right, Sir Roger, just stay there if you would be so kind. Henry Bolton, called out there by Sir Roger, saying you don't really understand what you're talking about. Your response?
I know. I mean, I've helped the government's cabinet level in 14 countries to sort out strategic border problems, and I would say that Sir Roger Gale is the one who's being rather simplistic about this and needs to grow up. The reality is that Manston was ill-conceived at the beginning. Manston was built and established with the expectation that this was a temporary problem. The analysis behind it was appalling. The execution of the implementation of it was not good, and nor was it sustainable. And we now find ourselves with a problem. Now, we're talking about the hotels as well. Let's bridge across to that. As Sir Roger says, quite rightly in this case, that Manston was designed only as a temporary holding and an assessment screening centre, if you like, before putting people in hotels. However, you've got to look at the fact that now the hotel capacity is pretty much taken up. There's a big pushback now on further hotels being taken, occupied by the Home Office. And so you've got a complex series of problems that, quite frankly, had there been a strategic plan from the beginning, fully integrated...
Can I just bring Sir Roger Gale back in to respond to that? Sir Roger, just briefly, Henry Bolton says we can do it. Tony Abbott proved it can work, and you say we can't. What's the answer? Because the British people, not me, not the people around this desk, and not you, sir, the British people are fed up. Who's to blame, and how do we get this right?
I'm not interested in the blame game. I spelled out fairly clearly how we get it right. It has to be done by international agreement.
OK.
I noticed that Mr. Bolton, for all his bluster, has not said, yes, we can send them back to France, because he knows, and I know, and everybody on your panel knows that legally you cannot do that.
Jumping, go on.
Let's see if we agree on this. Let's see if we agree on this, OK? Number one, we need a legitimate pathway for those asylum seekers to make their claims. Number two...
We're starting in the wrong place there.
Number two, we know, and I'm the only one who's going to say it, that Brexit has played a part. Because we know that in 2018, we had something like 229 people crossing the channel. Right. And now we have over 40,000. And we hear Sir Roger saying very clearly we need international...
Hold on, Isabel Oakeshott, that's not... Excuse me, Henry, wait, speak.
Paula, I mean, to blame Brexit is just absolutely ludicrous.
I throw it out there, Isabel.
There is a complete naivety here. I was quite shocked to hear Sir Roger talking about, you know, in praiseworthy terms about the tentative steps that are being taken with Emmanuel Macron. Give me a break. The public do not want tentative steps. They want a solution now.
Sir Roger, respond to Isabel, if you'd be so kind.
Yeah, quite simply, I'm afraid Miss Oakeshott is being, as many journalists are, because they're playing to the gallery, simply populist. We know what the public want. We know what the public are saying.
But we have to deliver it.
The reality is that in international law, you cannot do it. You know that, and to say anything else is disingenuous.
What I would say is that sometimes the law may need to be tested.
Sir Roger Gale, thank you, as ever.
Ugh, she really does make my skin crawl. I just wonder which other international laws Isabel Oakeshott would be willing to test. That really is food for thought, isn't it? My God. What an unpleasant character. Look, Roger Gale there did a great job. I mean, he holds them all to account in his own inimitable way. Of course, he's not everyone's cup of tea, but on the fundamentals of right and wrong when it comes to asylum seekers or migrants who come here to work, he knows they're necessary, we know they're necessary, and he knows the people he's speaking to here are regressive and backward. Unfortunately, there are very few of these type of Conservatives left in Parliament. But anyway, just a quick one for you there. I'm still away from home. I will be back at some point next week. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again soon. Cheers.